I'll be very clear. That is not the case. Money is nothing came from IIT. Even till date, we have not taken money from IIT, right? I had pitched to another 30, 40 people separately by myself. So a lot of conversation had already happened, right? And a lot of people had said, no, hey, think about it. You're making a big change. So a lot of this advice I got, right? But with professor, the only thing is, what we expected was completely different. I wanted to go tell him about how to build a rocket. He was telling me 10 other ways in which I could innovate. There is no point in simply going and complaining that, okay, I can't compete with a big guy or a bigger rocket because I'm small and they have the advantage of economies of scale. Right. So we realized we have to figure out technologies that work at this scale. I applied to SpaceX, I applied to Blue Origin, I applied to whatever other launch vehicle company you could, and then as a non-American or as a non-green card holder or a non-citizen, it is very difficult to get into any of these companies. So very quickly I realized that US is, even for experience, even for a couple of years, it's not going to work for me.
Correct.
So from that moment, I made up my mind that, okay, this has to be an India story.
Not just a magazine, club for the most intentful builders of India.
So our entire approach in terms of content is that we try to be very technical and very, very technical and very early stage oriented, where whatever content we are trying to portray to the people who are reading it is for early stage for entrepreneurs and futurepreneurs, rather than, going very motivational or, something else.
Okay,
correct.
Understood.
Right. So, and we will also talk about you and your life, where because per se, when I was researching about you, I found it very fascinating because you were always interested in science. Your family is based in science per se. Your mother was a physics teacher.
That's right.
Father is an engineer and grandfather also an engineer, right?
Yeah.
You were always interested in aerospace, but you ended up doing a degree in finance.
Yeah.
Right. And then you were there for around 10 years doing, doing various roles in leadership and else in the Wall Street itself. So how was that like? What was that decision about?
So I always wanted to do space, but I think when I was ready to do a degree in, in engineering, aerospace opportunities in India are much limited. Not like today. This is 2000, early 2000, right? Some 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So people around me advised me that I should do a degree that will get me a job. And that time, computer science and electrical and electronics, these were like the things that were more job friendly as opposed to aerospace. So that's where I started. And then when I finished my electrical engineering degree, I realized all my friends were getting onto something in the business side, like either in marketing or communication or finance or something, which is where that aspect came in, right? And I realized that if I'm doing that, I could actually make a little more money and probably it would also be more rewarding from a career. At least that was my impression at that time. So that is why I decided I should do something in finance. But given my inclination for engineering, I didn't want to do a regular finance program. I wanted to see if it's possible to do some blend, and that's where this financial engineering program came up, where the degree that I did in Columbia University in New York was like a degree where you take the mathematics that is used in physics and you apply it to stock markets.
Wow.
Right? So in a way, it's a way of modeling probability. It's a way of modeling randomness. And to be very honest, it doesn't really work well in the finance sectors because, there's no physics law that follows that can explain people's behavior. Yeah, stock market.
Right. Makes sense.
But it's a good tool, right? It gave me the ability to understand what this means overall. So that's where the whole thing started. And then after a couple of years there, I realized I should be doing something in space because that has always been my passion, right? Like from childhood, I wanted to do something in So then I started exploring what is really the goal, what is the need, and from there, one thing after the other led to Agnikul.
So coming back to that, right? So your decision of doing a degree in finance was majorly based that employability at that time was not that bigger an opportunity, correct?
That's right.
But even after that, you doing that particular job for 10 years is a very big commitment which you gave to the market. where you were already so much interested into space. As I read about you also, that you were always doing something or the else with the job also regarding the space in terms of education per se also, correct? So what was that like? Like how was those 10 years? Were you actually enjoying them, or was it something like again a strategic decision that this has to happen right now for me to actually scale my startup whenever I start beginning it?
No, it was not very strategic and all. Actually, I see after 1 or 2 years in finance, I realized finance is not for me. Right.
Correct.
So I had to, and then obviously my next choice was aerospace because that's what I actually always wanted to do. But it was looking like a major decision because I already did an electrical engineering degree, then a financial engineering degree. So, and now I'm going to aerospace. So it just felt like, am I just like simply switching instead of actually staying with one thing? Right. And it also was very unsettling because by then my other friends are already moved up in their own careers. Like the social circle around me who were in my age group, they were all looking at doing other things. Like they'll be worried about the next promotions or their next, if they're a founder, they'll about the next big fundraise. And I am here thinking whether the industry itself is the right fit for me and so on. So that was very unsettling. But I took the real reason I spent 7 to 10 years is because for the first 3-4 years, I was very undecisive. I didn't know what I should be doing, right? Except that I was always following space tech. But it took me some time to get the guts to say that, okay, this is what I will do. The next 3-4 years, the last 3-4 years was about actually finding the best way to get into space tech. Which is why I quit that. After I quit my job, I did the second master's degree in aerospace engineering. But even that I didn't finish, mainly because by then Agnikul was starting to get traction. Right. So I realized I had to be an insider to start doing rockets, and for that I needed a degree because no one is going to accept a person from finance and saying that okay, you're going to build building rockets. So that is why it took a long time. I would not say they were happy years and all or very strategic. It was more like me being confused, and then the last 2-3 years were strategic. It was like, okay, what should I do to get in? What is the best way I'll understand the market? That's why I moved to Los Angeles. I was in New York. So I moved to Los Angeles to understand the market, all of those things as well. So, and Los Angeles because SpaceX is there.
Right.
So all of those decisions were made at that time in 2015 to 2017. A lot of those things were happening.
So right now, as I see that Agnikul also has a private launchpad, right? It is also planning a first launch in the later 2025, if I'm not wrong, right?
That's right.
So yeah, if you could let me know about the same.
So when I was looking at the market, I realized that there is a gap in the rocket industry, and I was always a rockets person. Even when I grew up in Chennai, PSLV and GSLV launches, you can just go to the terrace and see the rocket shoot up. From Chennai, you can see it. Sriharikota is only 80 kilometers, 90 kilometers from here.
Correct.
So that passion was there, and growing up, I used to watch these on Doordarshan. I mean, now everything has changed to YouTube, but still, the fact that if there is a rocket launch, you turn up your TV and watch it is the normal thing for me always.
Right.
So that was there, and when I was researching the market, I realized the market had drifted, like satellites had changed, but rockets that were carrying these satellites had not changed. So it felt like it made sense to make a small rocket. Now, whether that's the best strategy, that's the only strategy, those are other questions. But when your satellite, when your what is being in space, the satellite, then the satellite has completely changed. The number of the satellites have changed. The size of each satellite has changed. Where they operate, they call it GEO, right? For example, geostationary orbit or LEO, low Earth orbit. Everything has changed. But rockets alone still are stuck in the past. So I felt like there is a meaningful necessity to develop a new kind of a rocket. So this is where it started. And to be very honest, I actually applied to jobs in the US. Right? I applied to SpaceX, I applied to Blue Origin, I applied to whatever other launch vehicle company you could. And then I quickly realized that as a non-American, as a non-green card holder or a non-citizen, it is very difficult to get into any of these companies because they have a lot of dual use restrictions.
Yeah, correct.
So very quickly I realized that US is, even for experience, even for a couple of years, it's not going to work for me.
Correct.
So from that moment, I made up my mind that, okay, this has to be an India story. And I was anyway following India throughout. When we did the Martian mission, when in 2016 we did that 104 satellite single launch, I was anyway following India, right? So I knew that a lot is happening in India. My thought was I was already there, I'll get some experience at least. But that also the doors were closed. So I decided, okay, the only way out here is to jump all in and go to India and try this out. So then I started reaching out to people who may be supporting.
Correct.
Because I spent some years in finance, I came up with a very rough business model on what it means to build a rocket company. Right?
Correct.
And in that, I realized that actually money goes into building testing facilities. So I'll be very clear about this part, right? When you build a rocket company, you're spending money on three things. You're spending money on building the rocket. You're spending money on manufacturing the rocket and launching it.
Okay.
And then you're spending money on testing various parts of the rocket.
Okay.
The biggest amount of money is the testing facility.
Okay.
All other things are like a fraction of it. That's all. So
Right.
in that context, I realized, okay, then if I can find a university partner, then maybe, because usually universities have labs, and labs is where you do tests. So I realized money outlay in the beginning would be much lesser. So I
That makes
made a list of professors and scientists and retired people across the country, and I reached out to all of them. I was still in the US.
So how did you reach out to them? You reached out through email?
Yeah, email, cold call, literally phone call, networks. If one of my friends, had seniors who were working with them or juniors working with them, whatever way, right? One way or the
You
other.
figured it out. It's just that you had to reach them out with the idea you had. Right?
Exactly, right? And then coincidentally, so my wife now, and that time my fiance, she told me about a particular organization in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai, called Aerospace Industry Development Association. And from there, I got connected to someone at IIT Madras. And from there, I got connected to another person in IIT Madras who knew Satya Chakravarti professor.
Correct.
And then, my co-founder, Moin, and we did a call with Prof. In fact, Moin was in Chennai already by then. So he went there to meet Professor. I was still in Los Angeles and I did the call.
Right.
And like we had done this.
And this was the year? 2016?
2017
already 2017. Okay.
Yeah, 2017 early. And that is when we had already pitched to like some, 15, 20 people. And I had pitched to another 30, 40 people separately by myself. So a lot of conversation had already happened. Right? And a lot of people had said, no, hey, think about it. You're making a big change. So a lot of this advice I got. Right? But with Professor, the only thing is what we expected was completely different. He was, when I wanted to go tell him about how to build a rocket, he was telling me 10 other ways in which I could innovate. So that felt like I found the person, right? And so,
he understood your vision, but he was helping you execute it better in his manner.
And he was actually pushing the boundary on the vision.
Wow.
Why are you stopping with small rockets? Why are you not thinking about even bigger things, right? So at that sense, it was like great to actually meet Professor. And once that happened, I knew I had a academia support that I wanted. That is the whole point of the strategy. The money goes into testing. Testing is available in universities. So you need to find an academia partner. And after some 89 people, we found the person. So the moment that happened, I realized I had to quit my job, come back to India. And then, I left.
Because you got the lab, you got the initial money there. And you got...
money was not, I'll be very clear. That is not the case. Money is, nothing came from IIT. Even till date, we have not taken money from IIT, right? What came from there is the ecosystem. Actually, it's more precious than money, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? So, and the
most valuable resource.
Yes, exactly. And the most important thing is when you're doing something slightly at that time in 2017, rockets were not like normal at all in India, right? So, only ISRO was doing it. That's it. So, when you are attempting something like that, credibility is a huge thing. And the very fact that a professor out of an institution that is as esteemed as IIT Madras was there, gave us that beginning. If I had gone and said that I'm building rockets by myself, no one would have been even believing it. But so for example, that IIT is there.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, even if like in the start you got 3 crores, right? And if let's say that you got 30 crores also, but if the credibility was not there, it wouldn't have turned out the way it turned out until right. So that is also one of the biggest resource. Apart from the ecosystem, credibility is also something which IIT Madras has, and it always has.
Yes, right. Yes, very much. So that's how Agnikul started, right? So, and the other thing is, because Professor himself is an aerospace, he's a rocket scientist, right? And he had a network with the ISRO community, right? So he connected us with R.V. Perumal sir, who also was in Chennai, and he is the father of India's GSLV rocket program.
Right.
And so we then went and presented to him, and then Perumal sir was kind enough to hear us out, even though he has built some of the largest rockets in India. He was kind enough to listen to us about what we wanted to do, and he was willing to support, right? So that is when that is how actually, I think those were the real moments of Agnikul. For a long time, Agnikul was an idea in my head. But at that point in time, it was a PPT and an idea in my head. But then the moment, Moin came in, the moment Professor came in, and the biggest moment was when, Perumal sir also came in. I think the whole story.
Yeah.
So I'll just give you one more context, right? See, when satellite became small, it was very clear that rockets have to be small. The problem with building small rockets, is that you are actually working against economies of scale. When you build a large system, the amount of percentage of waste will be very small. Right? Because you're getting efficiencies from the big things that are happening, which is why even if you look at the market today, the Starship rocket that SpaceX is building today will be far more efficient than any other rocket in the world, because it's just building at that scale. Right? But when you're building a small rocket,
so for example, sorry to interrupt. So basically what Starship will be able to do is it can launch, let's say 50 satellites. Whereas if Agnikul is launching, it will launch 1 or 2 satellites, right? So the wastage which will happen in the space would be far more with Agnikul than Starship. Am I right?
It would have been that way. Right? If we had done it the normal way. And so that is why it's very difficult to compete at that level. Right? So we figured there is no point in simply going and complaining that, okay, I can't compete with a big guy or a bigger rocket because I'm small and they have the advantage of economies of scale. Right. So we realized we have to figure out technologies that work at this scale. So you can't use the old methods that people have been using for tens of years to build big rockets. Try to build a small rocket with that and say it's going to be affordable. It won't be affordable. So you will have to figure out what technologies actually work at this scale. So that is what got us into, say, 3D printing. Right? Because we realized that the unit economics of making a small rocket engine completely blow up if you take the traditional manufacturing techniques. Right. Traditional design techniques. Those things don't work for small systems.
So could you give an example? For example, let's say if you make a small rocket in the traditional manner, what would be the cost? And exactly the similar for 3D printing.
Yeah, I mean, again, roughly I could say, right? Because it depends
roughly.
Yeah, like a big rocket engine, so to speak, could be somewhere between 2 to 2.5 crores. Right? Let's say,
correct.
The full engine. But a small one, if you normalize for the thrust, let's say it should come to somewhere around 2 to 3 lakhs. Let us say, okay, it should come there because you're looking at 100 the thrust, let us say, right? But it will actually end up being 20 lakhs.
20 lakhs.
Yeah. If you want to say
but that's also immensely low. Then,
but for the amount of thrust, say, because if you're reducing your thrust by 1,000 times. Right? Then you should be actually reducing your price also by 1,000 times. But the price won't reduce by 1,000 times. The price will only reduce by 50 times.
50 times, correct.
So then the question becomes, okay, then it's not an economical story, right? Because I'm producing much lesser thrust. Ideally, if I produce, say, just putting random numbers here, don't attach direct value, just to highlight the concept I'm saying. If I produce a 1 meganewton engine, right? And for that 1 meganewton engine, it takes me 2.5 crores. Let us say. Okay. If I ideally build a 100 Newton engine, right, then it should be literally from thousands of, it's 1 meganewton is 10 power 6 Newton, right? From there, I've come to 10 power 2 Newton. There should be 4 orders of magnitude cost reduction.
Right.
It should be like some 25,000 rupees. There is no way you'll get it there.
Yeah, correct.
It will be in the range of, again, some 20 lakhs. So even though your thrust has come down so much, your price has not come down by the same order. So it is this is what I told about economies of scale not working. So now to make a rocket engine have that orders of magnitude lesser cost, you will have to come up with new tech. The old tech is not going to work. The old tech was figured out by the world, all the rocket scientists in the world, to go for that size.
Right, correct.
No one thought about it for this size. So now when you're looking at this size, the whole story changes. You have to think from first principles on what is the best tech to use.
Right.
So that's where 3D printing helps. Because with 3D printing, we realize that you can iterate faster. You can make hardware with a much simpler way. You don't need to spend so much money on molding and casting and so on, right? So the attachment to 3D printing came because that is the only way to make a meaningful priced engine. Otherwise, it'll
Right.
simply be too expensive. Anyway.
For the unit economics to work, basically.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly.
So, if I'm not wrong, I think Agnikul was the first company to do 3D printing in rockets.
No, 3D printed
In India?
parts were used in rockets, right?
Okay.
In India, we definitely were the first ones, and even in the world, we are the first ones to make the entire rocket engine in a single shot. Head to
Okay.
foot, from the nozzle to the place where the fuel enters, every single aspect of the rocket engine is printed in a single shot. So
All right.
basically, it's like you open the printer, what you get out of it is a full 3D, is a fully printed engine.
Right. Got it. So, I mean, to do these things for the first time itself might have taken enormous amount of time of trial and error also. Like, for example, the first draft of the engine to come out of the 3D printer might not have worked on the first time itself.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Right. So much more than time. I think it took enormous amount of effort from the team. And I should give all the credit to the team here for being at the problem so persistently. Even though it was not very clear whether at that point in time even a 3D printed engine will work. Now we have flown it also, right? So now there is a lot of confidence. But at that point in time, where only parts of 3D printed components were used in engines. That's all the world had seen. From there to say I'll print the entire engine in a single shot, what comes out will directly be tested. Those kind of approaches were still new. So we had to go through iteration after iteration after iteration of each small component, then bringing those components together and printing it together, then printing the whole thing as a single piece, and then testing it step by step. So all of those things took a lot of efforts. I think the team was very efficient in executing on time. Right?
Got it.
Very lucky that we got a great set of people. But the hard part was the amount of effort. With the uncertainty looming over your head, whether this would work, because it had not been done before.
Got it. So now I have a very interesting question. Okay. So like, let me take Agnikul as a business. Okay. So if Agnikul is a business, who are its target customers? Right.
So,
and everything you explained until now, including 3D printing, including unit economics, right? Everything is relevant to the target customer only, correct? So who are the target customers and what is exactly like who will exactly buy the services or the product of Agnikul?
So anyone who is a small satellite operator, right? And I'm talking all the way up to say even 400, 500 kgs of satellites. They are all customers of Agnikul, right? So what we offer them is stuff. So basically, a rocket launch is a journey to space. It's like you're booking a ride, right? So when you book a ride, say on Ola or Uber, wherever you're booking a ride.
Uber for rockets,
right? So you look at 3 parameters, right? You look at where you will get on board, where you will get dropped off, how much time you will wait for the ride, and how much you'll pay. That's all. Every transportation problem in the world is only these 4 problems, right?
4 problems.
And 2 of them are location, pick up and drop off, price, time, waiting time. That's all. So the same thing we apply to rockets. Right? So when we apply the same story to rockets, we realize that none of these are available in a flexible way to satellite operators today because rockets are too big. So they were demanding a lot of constraints from the customers, right? You have to come here only to launch. We will go to this orbit only. We will lift off at this time only. You have to pay at least for this much minimum order quantity. All these constraints are being imposed by the rocket guys because you're trying to fit a small parcel into a huge truck.
Correct.
The truck guy will say what he wants to say. So that
and also they won't take off until and unless they have enough satellites to
critical mass. Yeah, for critical mass needed for profitability.
Critical mass. Correct.
So these are the problems. So when we wanted to offer a solution, we wanted to say, okay, what can a small rocket offer that a big rocket will never offer?
Okay.
That was again the starting point. So one, as I told you before,
efficiency.
Efficiency, flexibility, right? Everything.
Yeah.
But my point is 2 major questions, right? One, what is it that makes a small rocket be inexpensive? That's number 1. That's a bench of technologies.
Correct.
3D printing is an example of that. The next one is, okay, now I've gotten the cost right. Cost is good. But then the next part would be, what is it that I need to offer that the existing people don't offer? So took down this as a pure transportation problem. Literally erased everything about space from the problem statement. Okay, I have to just go from Earth to some orbit in space. Where do I lift off? Where do I get dropped? Where do I drop people? How much do I ask them to pay? How long am I going to ask them to wait? All of these parameters, do we have again tech backing all of this?
Right.
And can you offer it in a way where no one in the big rockets is offering?
Correct.
And so that has been so we always try to position ourselves in the shoes of a customer. And like this is a very normal thing in other businesses, right? You always do what the customer wants.
Correct.
Except in rockets. In rocket satellites alone, you're always doing what the supplier wants. So we wanted to actually change that, or at least get it a little towards customer centric, right? Today the industry is so much launch service centric. Basically, the launch dictates everything.
Right.
So the biggest of the biggest players in the world today in the communication space are not able to replicate Starlink, the internet-based, the space-based internet service.
Correct.
Because they don't have launch capacity.
Interesting.
So that we wanted to open up as much as
The supply is very restricted. So in a way, Agnikul is working on getting it free. The supply and free.
Open net. Yes, correct. Second thing that we always solve for is to talk to customers as much as possible. Like when we only had an engine, nothing. No autopilot, no software, no avionics, nothing. When we only had an engine, still at that time, we were talking to customers. So always the fact that, and this is something that I consciously keep myself in check, right? Because I myself am driven a lot by engineering. I want myself sufficiently to not lose track of the customer.
Right.
Because once then it's not a business anymore. Then it becomes an R&D story.
Yeah.
Right? So from very early years, I think 2018 end, just one engine is all we had. That too, not even a 3D printed engine. We started signing agreements with customers.
Correct. Yeah.
Because only when you talk to them, you will know what is the real pain point. Right? So that's what kept us going. We knew that, and unfortunately or fortunately for Agnikul, but unfortunately for the market, I would say, the rocket satellite supply demand gap has only gotten worse. Over the last 7-8 years, we are only seeing more pain coming from small satellite that is being experienced by small satellite operators.
So the problem you are solving is getting bigger and bigger, so that your solution has more and more potential.
So the solution is potential, and that keeps our team also going, right? Because at the end of the day, when let's say you really tried hard and something in the testing didn't work, at least if you know that, hey, but you know what, in this one day, actually the problem became worse. So there is still value that you're going to add if you solve this. It keeps you going. Right? So you need to connect, and we try at my level as a founder, I try as much as possible to keep telling people that, listen, what you're solving for, people are struggling without it. You're not simply working on some engineering problem, you're actually working on solving, you're going to add value to someone.
Right.
So that is also what gets people going. And the third part is just a lot of people in the space sector are driven by passion. It's a very passion-driven sector. So we see a lot of that heart is in the work, right? So that means you get through day-to-day problems without much of a struggle.
Right. Got it. So one more thing I would like to know from you is that if you could, portray all the products which Agnikul is doing right now, and what exactly will it be doing, when it comes into the picture, right? Like let's say late 2025.
Yeah, so we have a launch planned with a couple of customers towards the later part of this year.
Yeah.
Not sure if I can reveal too much now, but that's broadly the plan. There are a couple of announcements that we would like to make at the right time, but it's going to be an interesting launch, again, a new kind of a launch with certain new technologies as well. But that is our way of saying, okay, now finally the commercial doors are also opening, right? Even though the industry itself calls commercialization as, I think, the third or fourth launch, that's the name that's given to it. If you are able to convince customers that your previous test was meaningful, then you can take orders before. That's why the previous test we did was very important, right? Because we didn't do a sounding rocket. Sounding rocket is basically you put it on a pedestal and then you light it, it just flies off, right?
Correct.
That's a very simple way of saying that I've done rocketry. Our launch, if you've seen the video, we recently posted one as well, where it vertically lifts off. It actually tries to do a pre-programmed set of maneuvers. It's trying to get to a point in space. You're actually actively maneuvering to get there. And that's what is needed for commercial missions.
Right.
And we did it from our own launchpad with full countdown. Like it was an orbital class countdown. A full commercial class countdown. So I think those things are now allowing us to talk to customers with more, because customers who understand that, this is not just a sounding rocket, get more confidence from seeing our tests. So that's I think. So even though in the industry it will never be called a commercial launch, it's allowing us to charge customers something, because I've done some work before. It's not like, okay, I've never flown or I've done only a sounding. So those kind of things is what we are, riding on. That's going to be the next big milestone for us.
So I have one more interesting question, again out of observation, right? So as you told me that you were someone who was from a finance background wanting to do something in rocket, you had heard too many no's, because you told that if I am in their place, I would also be very in doubt that how would someone who's done a degree in finance, have done work in at Wall Street, is wanting to do something in rocket science. Coming to a place right now where you've already raised $60 million, upwards of $60 million, you are doing, Agnikul is doing so well, right? You might have faced these questions in terms of investors, where the investors might have asked you somewhere or the elsewhere, so why rocket, or why should I invest in someone who's done so much in Wall Street? So how do you answer that question? I'm just asking this from a point of view where any entrepreneur or someone who's wanting to do business, right, there are various people in different domains of business who are actually going through these questions today, right? Where probably I might want to do something in health tech or climate tech, but I belong to a very commerce background, right? So I don't have that thing, right? So there might be this question which you might have answered several times in several parts of your life in Agnikul, right?
Yeah, so I'll break that down into two parts. One is proving that your intent is honest. Right, because you've not been in the sector that you want to build your startup in, people will question whether it's a passing interest, whether it's just a, okay, this guy saw some movie and then decided he wants to make rockets, right? So for me, the credibility there came from quitting jobs, doing actually degrees in aerospace engineering. Even though I didn't finish, I enrolled for a program there, right? And I did all of those things. So I think many of the very early investors saw comfort in the fact that I was willing to let go of whatever was more settled in my life for doing this. So that added some truth to the story. You need to have skin in the game. If you are simply saying, okay, I'll be doing a finance job, but on the part-time I'll do Agnikul, no one will give money.
Right, 100% right.
Needed that, okay, as a founder, I took the risk, at least with my own career, to say I'm quitting everything. I'm quitting a decently paying job. I'm quitting life in New York. I'm quitting life in Los Angeles and coming to start from scratch.
Yeah, correct. You had a pretty good life there. You had a pretty good job there, right? And you quit everything and come here and you did this. While you were doing the job, you were always studying aerospace, right? So that was also something which proved your intent towards the
that is one thing, right? And the other thing that also helped is, even though I am not a rockets person, from the very beginning we had Professor Satya. From the very beginning we had Perumal sir. So yeah, I'm not a rocket guy, but I am very serious about it. I am betting my life on it, and I am able to get people to work with me who are actually rocket scientists. So that's what changes, sir.
Right. Also, I missed one of the biggest part of your Los Angeles life. How was learning filming, and how filming?
So that is a hobby. I've always wanted to. I like the fact of how to tell a story. The whole filmmaking aspect has always fascinated me. So when I was in 6 years in Wall Street, or 7 years in Wall Street, all those years I was actually doing evening film school.
Yeah. Wow.
So and actually it taught me a lot, right? Because I used to work, it was very different group of people and very different. And in there also, from the idea aspect of it, it's like, what do you tell a person? How do you tell a story to a person? So many of the things about retaining an audience, or at least telling something, just because I think I've told doesn't mean the person understood it. Right? So all of those things about narrating a story, creating a narrative, all of those things I got a lot. And of course, I just love the art aspect of it as well. So that kept me it kept me happy in those years where everything was confusing.
Right. So we might end up also seeing you making a film probably sometime later in life.
Yeah, now Agnikul is already taking 2x of my bandwidth, but yeah, hopefully someday.
Yeah, sometime in future when Agnikul is where you want it to be.
Yeah, sometime hopefully. Yeah.
Now, one more thing I'd like to ask is that, is there a possibility of Agnikul getting into the larger rocket market? or would it always be everything small, small rocket or small satellite based, right? Because I see that y'all are getting into almost every services around space, be it launchpad, be it the engine, be it the rocket and everything, right? So would we ever see Agnikul getting into the other aspect of the larger rocket market also?
If there is a business potential, for it, then definitely yes.
Right.
So the reason we started with small rockets is twofold, right? One, there was a direct demand. Rockets and satellites had grown apart. So there was a need for a small rocket. So that is the first reason. Second reason, it doesn't take hundreds of millions of dollars to get there with a small rocket. With a large rocket, the investment required is higher. Right. So it is hard to raise even small money for building these kind of things. And you don't want to start off with, okay, if you don't give me 200 million, sorry. Right. I can't go like that. So that's why we started off with this. Now in the process, we have built like a library, right? Everything we have designed in-house. There is literally, I think maybe like some sensors or something are from outside. Everything else, 100% design is in-house. So I am seeing Agniban as a product, but I'm also seeing Agniban as the outcome of a library of tools that we have developed coming together.
Wow, got it.
So I can take that, extend it to make larger rockets. Of course, there's going to be more work involved, more money involved, but it is there. But the question is, it should make business sense. I love making large rockets. It's not enough to go raise venture capital.
Got
I
it.
need to show a business case. There has to be some customer who's like, yeah, I need Agniban, a bigger Agniban to do my work. When that moment comes, when we crack a variable or when we think we are ready to crack something that today's bigger rockets don't offer, that we are offering at a price that is better than all of them, we will definitely go there.
Got it. Until and as the model does not work, it does not make sense for you to enter that. Perfect.
Because this alone is like small rockets alone is a very sustainable, meaningfully profitable business. And there is so much more to be done here. It's not like I've done 100 launches. Here itself, I'm still like just getting into the commercialization phase and all that. So there is enough challenges here, but I'll keep our eyes open. If there's a business opportunity, it makes sense to go and figure out that engineering also. But it should be tied to a business opportunity. Even Agniban was driven by a business opportunity. It just
makes sense.
A good stroke of luck and coincidence that what I loved, I got a chance to do. Market and timing was great.
Right. So as we told that when you build leverage, you might help other businesses also to enable some new businesses, right?
Yeah.
If you could just name 2 or 3 different businesses, like for example, Starlink, satellite-based internet services, something like those businesses which, Agnikul, if get successful, can enable.
Yeah, sure. So other than Starlink kind of, communications constellations, I think we see the interesting part about space today is space itself is becoming more of a platform today. And what I mean by that is, in the past, space used to be like a destination, right? You go to space because you want to take a photo or because you want to help in communication in some way or the other. This is why people used to go to space. But today we are seeing across the world so many more initiatives where people are going to space to use what it offers. And so what does space offer? Space offers microgravity if you're in orbit, right? Space offers vacuum. And if you're not facing the sun, it's pretty cold out there. So low temperatures. So these prolonged microgravity, prolonged, cold temperatures, prolonged vacuum, these are very hard to replicate on Earth.
Okay.
So I think it is now people are starting to go to space just to get advantage of what space can offer. So if you want, say, for example, a manufacturing process where you need 2 weeks of microgravity, today it is actually getting comparable in cost to put a pod in orbit and then come back. Because in orbit, you're in microgravity.
Interesting.
There's actually a company in US that's offering that as a service now.
Right.
So I think those aspects are actually making space literally like, okay, it's not a destination, it's just a platform. It's like, okay, it's like a environment, right?
Enabler.
Yeah, it's like a chamber. It's like a furnace. It's space. It's one more instrument now.
Yeah.
So I think that's the enabling we're talking about. The moment getting there becomes easier, a lot of these things start to open up.
And what are your views on ISRO also getting into the commercializing the small rocket phase with SSLV also, correct? So I mean, ISRO coming in with such a big let's say such a big workforce or such big volumes or money, right? SSLV, what do you think about that?
I think overall the trend of privatization is good because it allows more people to develop things and do things at scale. I would say it allows ISRO to focus more on innovation and R&D, which as a private player we cannot do, because as a private business you are, as a money-making entity, we are bound to answer to our shareholders. We have to make profits. It has to be run as a business. Right.
Correct. Makes sense.
But R&D organization like ISRO, which is supported by the government, can focus a little more on those kind of research initiatives as well. Right. So I think the model is shaping out to be a very exciting blend today, because anything where you can do a business out of it is going to the private sector, because that's what the private sector should do. And the R&D aspects are more done by ISRO. So it's a nice blend because if it's going to take a lot of effort to build up new class of technologies, that will be taken care by the government. But the moment it is close enough to privatization and there is money to be made from a business model, it goes to the private industry. So it's a very healthy trend is how I'm seeing.
And according to you, what is the bigger market? Like is it the international market or is it the Indian market?
Today it's fully international. I think very few people are making small satellites in India. Right. So even though the strength of India in space is so high, because the policy opened up only very recently, we don't see a lot of small satellite operators. Like in Europe, for example, you see at least hundreds of small satellite operators. Even in the US, you see many of them. By India, they just started. I'm seeing the last 3-4 years again a lot of people coming up. So maybe it will mature to a certain level in the next 3-4 years, but today it is still new. Because the sector opened up to private players only recently, we are still seeing the effect of that.
Right, correct. Yeah, no, in terms of customers also, I think international market would be something which is way bigger than the Indian market right now. And we might end up exporting the technology also.
Yeah. Right now, it's definitely like that. Yeah, I don't know if it's called export technically, but you basically fly for a foreign customer.
Yeah,
like you offer a right to foreign. Yeah, correct. That is definitely the way it is.